Hey guys, it's Mat Hector. We're at Jackdaw Studios today, and this is The Pulse. Today I'm joined by my bass playing and engineering friend Mark Leary, and we're going to walk through miking up this drum kit, all the mics do, how they work together, and I'm going to pretend I'm a newbie to recording and ask Mark all the questions that hopefully you're thinking about, whether you're just starting for the first time or you're a bit further on in your journey of recording and miking drums. Right, so first part of the drum kit, the bass drum. What mics have we got and what they do? And I see we've got two there.
So we've got inside, we've got a Sennheiser E902 to basically get the attack, transient to the drum, and then this dude, FET 47, going to get the tonality of the skin, which is where all the sustain comes from, unless it's dampened. But yeah, so together, once they're in phase, they sort of work as one overall view. Because it's a big drum, so so you can get away with one, depending on the type of music you're doing. But it's handy to have options, particularly if you're recording for other people.
And if you did have one, obviously we've got two, ones inside, one's outside. If you only had one, how would you use that to?
So, with something large, the placement of the mic is key, because every inch you move it, you're going to get a different sound. So I would start in the middle, have a play, have a listen, make a decision based on that. Might be that later on, you move it because there's not enough attack or there's too much bottom end or whatever. But listening's always the way to solve things.
Great, that's the bass drum.
Nice.
So we should got the snare drum next.
Yes, snare drum.
We'll just look to the bass drum. Now we can look at the snare drum and the main parts of the drum kit. I noticed, like the bass drum, we've got two mics on the snare drum, top and bottom. Before we talk about the snare drum itself, what are these mics and what would you usually use to mic a snare drum?
Okay, so we've got dynamic mics today. You can use condensers,
right,
depending on, drummer, song, how loud everything is. Sometimes you might want something overloading. You could use a condenser. It may overload. You might want that. We've got dynamic today because that's what we're going for, and it's a Sennheiser MD441, which is super cardioid, so it's going to reject this bit of the drum kit here and focus mainly on the snare. And then for the bottom, which is where the actual snare is, to get that to speak better, we've got another Sennheiser down here, which is a 409. And that's just going to pick up the brightness, not so much the attack and the skin or tone, and obviously rim shots, but it's just the rally bit at the bottom.
Okay, so a couple of questions. So you talked about the dynamic being used in this situation. So dynamic can deal with more volume compared to a condenser. That's why it's usually better for the snare. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So a condenser mic can overload easier.
Okay.
Depending if it has a pad. And at some pads you can get minus 20 dB pads, which will stop the engine in the mic from overloading.
That's fantastic. Okay, so that's interesting. So the top mic picks up the body of the snare, the bottom one gets the brightness and
the brightness, yeah. And it's good. That's a good having that mix to be able to, because then you don't have to EQ the snare. You can just turn up the mic to make it brighter.
And just the last question of what you said. So the super cardioid, thank you. So that's got a pickup pattern that's kind of narrow and it's not hearing these things so well, which is the attack of the snare drum.
Yeah, whereas a cardioid is going to come out and pick up more of the hi-hat and the rack tom. This one, in theory, it should be a lot quieter.
That's really cool.
Giving it more focus on the snare.
Fantastic. Okay, so the snare drum.
Yep.
That's that done. Let's move on to the toms now. So I recognise these four super.
Those bad boys.
So what are these doing? What's the deal with the position and the sound of these mics?
Well, okay, so obviously, as everyone says, industry standard, but, there's a reason for that. Brilliant attack. The bright without being harsh, good for guitars and vocals and a whole bunch of other stuff. Here, we've got them just in a bit, looking down, not too much stick. And skin, so they're about a third of the way between the center of the skin and the edge. again, that's just where this sounded good.
Okay.
Experiment, move things about, make up your own opinion. You don't have to use these mics. You could use the 441s or anything you want, really. But these are choice.
Well, what I'm picking up from a couple of things you already said is, although there appears to be some general rules, it's not really about rules. It's about what sounds good to you. Trying different positions and
opinions. It's about having experimenting.
Yeah.
And then having an informed opinion and making decisions.
Yeah.
That are suitable to each situation.
Fantastic. Okay, mate. So, and I noticed the floor tom's the same, right?
They are.
2-1 again.
Yeah.
Do you ever mix and match the tom mics? Or?
Yeah. Sometimes, depending, you can use. Well, I like to use a condenser on the rack,
okay,
and then a dynamic on the floor, because the proximity effect.
What's that?
Which is the closer a.
No. So it's confused. That was okay.
The closer a directional microphone gets to something,
yeah, the
more lower frequencies are accentuated. So you can get, if you put, when I've experimented with putting on floor tom, it's too much.
Okay.
So the dynamic mics deal with it better, but on the rack tom, you can get a really rich sound if, the song's slow enough to deal with it.
That's great. And I noticed for the first time, so the toms aren't mic'd underneath at the moment. So you've only got one compared to the bass from the snare drum, which you've got two.
Just at this time, yeah. Sometimes top and bottom micing's brilliant.
Yeah, I do know we've done that times in here, and it gives it a lot of body, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, it sounds pretty sexy.
Yeah. Roger Taylor's faves.
Yeah. Okay, so thumbs done. Of course, didn't talk about the hi-hat.
Hi-hat, cool. So got here a pencil condenser. Reason being, they're very good for fast transients. Okay. So they describe what they're looking at very accurately.
Okay, cool.
Which was, different to like a dynamic, which would have its own sound. If your hi-hats are really bright, you might not want to use a mic like this. If they're, average, then go for it and experiment with placement. We've sort of found that pointing it towards the bell, you get a slightly less aggressive sound. But if you want that energy and sizzle, you can get it straight up and down.
You used the word that I just want to just mention, transients.
Yeah.
Not everyone will know what a transient is. What is transient?
Transient is the start of a sound happening, which your brain uses to identify what that sound is. It's like it's the plosive where a lot of the energy can be before, like a drum happens, bang, you've got a big transient, and then you've got no energy after that.
So it's like the kind of the visual, it's like what the sound looks like. It's like a wave.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. That's good to know what transients are, because obviously for drums, they're different to, say, guitar and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're all transients.
Like, is this on the hat?
This is a KM184. Neumann. Yeah, condenser.
Okay, hat's done. We're zipping through, doing really well. Okay, so the last part of the kind of, I guess, the standard miking of the kit is we have our two...
which are the KM184s. They are cardioid. This one's pointing at the metalwork over there. But today, instead of going straight above, because sound radiates from cymbals up and down, the more of an angle you get, the less harshness you get with it. So this is kind of picking up that side of the drum kit.
Sure.
So you're kind of getting a bit of the tom. Same with this one, you're getting a bit of the hi-hat, a bit of this. So they're not overheads per se. They're just more of a wider view of the drum kit, as opposed to having like an A-B pair, which would be out like that, which you really would just be picking up the metalwork. So we're just getting a bit more skin involved in the...
Yeah, because like you say, as they look, they're not pointing directly
down, no.
Are they? So the fact that they're like that means that everything's a little less harsh.
A little less harsh.
The cymbals are going like that rather than going straight into the mic.
Yeah.
And so generally, I know you can use overheads in different positions.
Yeah.
But they can do different jobs, can't they? Sometimes they can cover the whole kit, or sometimes, like you just mentioned, they just covered cymbals.
Sometimes one will do.
Right.
Or two. One over the drum kit, one in the bass drum, or just one. It depends on your vibe.
And this is they're known for the way these two mics are configured. Is that?
Well, this is kind of nearly coincident XY.
Okay. And that means because they're both
yes,
lapping. Is that right?
Well, it's kind of it's supposed to mean that both of the capsules occupy the same space, and these close enough,
Almost
close enough for jazz, you know.
So that's kind of the majority of the drum.
Yeah.
Bass drum, the snare drum. We've got our toms. We've got a hi hat, and we've got our overheads. Now I noticed there's a couple of other kind of funky positions going on here. One being behind me here, over my shoulder. So what's going on with this guy?
Well, he's my fave. So this guy here, again, he's down from cymbal height, so that he's on the plane of rejection of the volume. And then what we've got is your body mass is kind of in front of the hi-hat, because they just go over everything anyway. And he's looking at the batter head, so you're going to get some good attack from the bass drum, just a general good impression, kind of similar to what you hear, but with quite a hi-hat.
That's interesting. So it's almost like the drummer's point of view.
Yeah. Drummers like the sound of that usually.
Yeah. So that's kind of what that hears is what's in our heads almost.
Pretty much.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I've been lucky enough, me and Mark work together a lot. So I've seen this position before, but it's good to talk about it and understand the theory behind it all. So this is, would you call this a full mic position? We get a full kit position, which mostly?
I mean, yes, yeah. But it's not bass drum heavy. If you put it up front, you would get more bass drum, but then less of these skin.
Yeah.
So whereas the spot mics, the mics that are close miking, are giving you a accurate description of what's happening, this is more what you hear, because you don't put your ear right next to the drum. So this is more of a more natural sound.
Yeah. Because a drum kit, most people hear a drum kit as one big.
Exactly. Yeah.
Whereas these mics, obviously, these close ones, hear just bits of it. Whereas like you just said, they're hearing the whole drum kit.
Well, yeah. So if you listen to this one first, when you've recorded it, and then you bring in these mics, then you can use these to reinforce the sound of this, if that's what you want to do, or you can just get rid of that and just use them. But if you want a natural sound, then start with that and bring these in to add more warmth or more detail.
I mean, in our experience working together, we've had situations where we've used these mics that are here in the whole kit, and like you say, just add in some of the close mics. Yeah. So the emphasis has been on the overheads and the room mics, where sometimes the sound requires different, and we lean more.
Like a David Bowie 70s thing, where everything's really close mic, there's very little ambience, all the mics are really close, and there may not actually be overheads involved.
But again, but this is an interesting thing, is where there's not a right way. No, we can have almost all close mics with a little bit of overheads, or we can have all overheads and room mic with a little bit of close mic. Both ways are right, depending on the.
Yeah. It's all, again, just informed opinion and decisions, but made on what you want to achieve for whatever it is that you're doing.
Fantastic. Okay, so we got one more for today. I said, I'm going to remove this ride cymbal so people can see the position of this. So, actually, I forgot to ask you, what is that mic over on the shoulder there?
That is the M149 Neumann valve mic.
And so obviously we talked about condensers already, and we talked about dynamic mic.
Yeah. So that's a condenser, but it's a valve condenser. So whatever the power supply, and then you've got a valve in it, which is an early way of using condensers. It's how the condensers were originally powered before 48 volts came along.
And does that change the sound of the valve?
It does, yeah.
In a good way? Well, obviously good.
In an expensive way.
Okay, so that mic aside, so I removed the ride cymbal. Something like this kind of chap who's kind of pointing at the snare drum, maybe pointing at kind of my stomach, perhaps, when I'm sitting down. Yeah. What is this position? What's it do? And the mic is that?
Well, I would call it the Bassy Dog's home position. which is, it's just a bit raucous, a bit noisy. And what I would generally do is just kind of throw it in, not really pay too much attention to where it is. But then at the other end of the mic pre, just put some kind of brutal compressor on it, or distortion, or, you know.
So what is this? What's it hearing? What's it?
So it's kind of getting this,
That area.
this area of the kit. It's, you know, again, it's supercardioid, so that this cymbal, if it was there, it wouldn't be picking that up too much. I mean, it's still going to hear it, particularly once you've, you know, compressed it to within an inch of its life. But then this is something that perhaps you wouldn't have particularly loud in the mix. But what it will do is it gives you the impression of being in a larger room, because it just brings the noise, the sustain of the drums and the metalwork, brings it up a bit, but makes you perceive the room bit as being louder.
Well, I've heard these kind of mics described as the vibe mic.
Yeah, vibe mic.
And the thing that I've noticed when we use them is when you push that up, it seems to give more energy and a bit of excitement to the kit, less dry.
And it could be one of those things that you leave muted in the verses and then you open in the chorus or whatever, you know. I think that's one thing that we like to do is at different points of the song, you might not have all of the mics being used at the same time, you know, depending on what you're doing.
I mean, we've used a couple of different mics there, but I know this works fantastically.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay, mate. So that's pretty much the whole kit covered. When it comes to mic, is there any kind of like things that you've learned over the years, or any gems, apart from the thing which is, if it sounds good, it is good. Doesn't matter whether it.
I mean, that's the rule.
Yeah.
You know, if it sounds good, it is good. You know, going back to the concept of experimenting, I think, you know, if you have the luxury of time, putting a mic somewhere and then moving it and making notes. You know, we did experiments with the bass drum a long time ago to find out, you know, where sounds like what, if that makes any sense. You know, in the middle sounds like this, you know, 2 o'clock sounds like that, down here sounds like that. So then you can, because like a microphone is basically like an instrument. Each one has its own characteristic.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's good to know what those characteristics are, because then you can use that to your advantage. You know, you can make quicker decisions if you've experimented.
Understanding about what it sounds like, why it sounds like that, yeah. And I mean, obviously we've gone through all these mics. There's a lot of mics on this kit. I mean, some people use more, but obviously some people are not going to have, well, all of these mics when they start out. What would be your advice for someone with only a couple of mics, or what kind of results can you achieve with that kind of less?
Well, I mean, yeah. So, you know, three mics, you could do an interesting drum sound depending on what you're doing. You know, it's not necessarily going to be, you know, super hi-fi, but you know, it's also not going to be lo-fi. But you could, you know, if you had a kick drum mic, if you had one here, and you could have one over here, and that way, you know, you've got the entire kit looked at.
Yeah.
It's not all over the top, so you're going to get good skin to sort of metalwork ratio, and then you're going to have one inside the kick that'll give you a bit of beef that these mics aren't picking up, or you know, or you could do it with just two. You know, or you could do it with one, but you might have to get into some sort of radical EQ to get some bottom end if we've got a mic over here. You know.
No, wait. Well, that's us done, I think. That was really fascinating. I mean, I know a lot of this stuff already because me and Mark worked together a lot over the years. But I think there's a lot of information there. But get your mic, put it in front of a drum or whatever you've got. Try it, move it around. Like Mark said, experiment, see what sounds good. Use your own ears, use your own taste. You know, some of this stuff is industry standard knowledge. Some of it we've gleaned ourselves, working together and doing sessions for years. But experiment, try different mics, have fun with it, and be creative. And you can't go far wrong doing that. So this is Matt and Mark. We're done for today. Hope you enjoyed the video.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to see more videos just like this.